felt just totally disconnected from myself. And so when Moot came over and she shared this one with me, I have flower essences. I have aromatherapy that I use. I use natural products on my body and on my skin and everything. But this one was speaking to me in that moment because there were things that were coming up. I was ascending in new and different ways, and there were boundaries that I needed to set with people, and there were some difficult conversations that I needed to have. And this was supportive for me to really step into that arena and do what I needed to do. And I was so grateful because I was like, oh, my goodness, I need this right now. And so my path has been like that a lot, you know, where I'll be going along and I will be utilizing, you know, whatever it is as, you know, working at that time and moving, you know, to different places and spaces and doing my work. And then I will get a teacher or a friend or a mentor or all of the above. They will come and say, hey, Iccha Devi, what about this? And then it's like, oh, my God, it's graduation time. It's time for something new. So when she introduced me to this one, I was like, thank you.
Yeah, and again, you know, the one that, you know, you were reading, you know, the thing that is continuously or consistently impressive about Bach Flower Remedies is that it's not just, you know, it's so specific into it to where it's almost, you know, scary at times. You know, I would say if someone was, you know, unfamiliar or just, you know, starting to take a look at them because it's getting so close to the point, even some of them that seem that they're similar. Let me read another one. Yeah. Mimulus, right? It says, brings courage and calm to face things that frighten or worry you, also aids the shy and timid.
Absolutely. Isn't that amazing?
And it's not fear, you know, it's not just courage. It's again, balance, you know?
Exactly. And it's touching many different areas. And the way that I think about it is that I just imagine how he must have been, you know, because there are 38 of these. So
he had to go through all of that. I was like, oh, goodness.
It's time. He's sitting in a field of flowers. He's meditating, and he's, you know, going, you know, through these different things in his mind and creating these states of being within himself so that he can say, which one of you can help me with this? And the way that I actually heard the story, I didn't exactly articulate this before, and that was the piece that just really just grasped me because I had felt this energy before, and it wasn't until I heard it explained this way that I was like, Iccha Devi, stand in your power because this is just really true. It said that he went to the plant kingdom and they told him, the little flowers, they said, hey, we will help you, okay? We know what you guys are going through, and here are some of us who can do thus and so. I said, wow. A conversation. A conversation.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier that one of the, and I don't remember the exact word that you used, maybe you could share it again, but there's no way that, or there's no fear of actually, you know, taking too much or the wrong is there a wrong combination? Or, yeah, let's talk a bit about that and also combining. Is it best to use these remedies in its pure forms? Let's get a little insight into if someone has never used these before, maybe a few notes on first-time usage and different things like that.
Absolutely. One of the ways that they talk about ways to determine efficacy of flowers and how they work in different states, and et cetera, is when you look at a related science, which is aromatherapy. Aromatherapy a lot of times works with the doctrine of signatures by Paracelsus. And basically the doctrine of signatures indicates that pretty much the way that a flower appears will kind of emulate what it can do in the body. So now,
like the tomatoes and things like that, the tomatoes and the heart chamber or something like that?
Absolutely. So that is considered the doctrine of signatures. The way that it looks determines how it could be integrated into the body. So one could even see that as a conversation if the actual conversation, could be too much for them to imagine. If you could look at the way that some of the flowers and some of the different shapes of plants and shrubs imitate different either conditions, like if you see things that are prickly like thistles, or indicate different ways that they look like things in the body. It's very artistic and creative, very exciting to an artist like myself. Anyway, so the doctrine is really used in aromatherapy. Now, if you distill that down a little bit further into flower essences, and now I'm going to just tell you a little bit about how flower essences are created or made or built. Basically what it is that when you have a process of creating the working with flowers, there are a couple of different things that you get, a couple of different constituents that you ferret out when you work through processing them. One of them is working with aromatherapy, whereas you get the essential oil, the essence of it, in a different kind of way, the essence of the oil, which has now a fragrance and it has a certain vibration to that. So that's one thing, okay? If you're dealing with certain other types of flowers and shrubs, you also get a concrete or an absolute, which is like a waxy substance that will come from this distillation process, whether it's heating or it's being extracted in different kinds of ways, steam distillation, etc. So then when you go a little bit further, if you're using steam distillation, you're going to get condensation on whatever vessel you're using to steam distill these plants and flowers. And so when you collect that water becomes then flower water, which still is not what we're working with. Flower water still contains a different kind of a vibration. Excuse me. It has still more fragrance. I use rose flower water on my face and my bathing and stuff. And you can use those different floral waters for all different kinds of things. Now, when you take the actual petals of the flowers, they're in their natural habitat. Excuse me, some of them you pick by sunlight, some of them you pick midday, some of them you pick by moonlight, and you collect the dew that's right there. You don't do anything to them, but you can either set them in water and let them imbue the water with their essence, okay, or you can have it so that the actual condensation is actually just kind of being pulled off of the flower leaves. And I just imagine how much of an involved process that is, and that to me speaks to how that can work, because intention goes a very, very long way. It goes a very long way. So that's how they're actually created. So what you're looking at is that the flower itself is imbued all of its substance into that water. And then this water is taken and a little bit of brandy or some kind of an alcohol or glycerin is added to preserve it, okay? And then it moves right along and it gets packaged up and you can purchase it. And you can also make some, and a little bit later on I'm going to share something about some of the other waters that I make that can be very healing too, that are along the same process.
Yeah, actually, when you were talking about the water, I remember my Grammy, my late father's mother, she used to keep two things. I remember she used to have all of her basics, but two things I remember very often were, I believe it was orange blossom water or orange water and rose water. And it seemed like my entire life, the bottle was never empty. She just always had rose water and like orange blossom or something like that, and she used it on her face and just other things. Sometimes she would use it instead of putting on any type of perfume. She would just splash a little rose water on herself, and I just always remember, or even lavender. I remember lavender water also. She used to spray it in the guest rooms and different things like that. So it's just really interesting. I definitely want to hear more about that. We have a quick question from a excuse me?
The wise women know.
What'd you say?
I said the wise women know. They keep those things close to them because they're very healing in many ways. They're good for your skin. They are a way to have a lovely fragrance. They can be very intoxicating and very calming at the same time. So as a hostess, you know, these are some of the things that come to my mind naturally.
And, you know, it's funny because, you know, you saying that, because anyone that knows me or hears me speak about my father's mother, she was very regal. You know, you could show up at her house at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday, unannounced, which was actually inappropriate, but just in case you did. She would be fully dressed with pants, a white Oxford shirt, cameo, I mean, the whole shebang, to the point where it's almost, you know, it was almost comical. But, again, like I said, you know, those things over time you start to remember. I mean, she had her rose water. She sprayed pillows with lavender. You know, she was very much into the, she had a fine understanding of teas and, you know, just different things like that. She was very much in that way, you know. But we do have a caller who has a question. They would like to know, how quickly do Bach Flower Remedies begin to work, and how long should you use them?
Oh, thank you so much for that question, caller. I will say this. When it comes to something that is very acute, and now I'm going to shift and talk about one essence that pretty much everybody can have on hand if they don't have anything else. They can have the Rescue Remedy on hand. And the Rescue Remedy is a blend of 5 of the different essences that come together that really treat in a situation that could be considered an emergency. Okay? And so these 5 that come together for this Rescue Remedy are the Rock Rose. The Rock Rose is for terror and panic. The Impatience, which addresses the irritation that might be happening if there's an emergency or some kind of an impatience about dealing with everything that's going on. The Clematis, which is for inattentiveness and lack of focus. For and then also Star of Bethlehem, which is for shock. And then the Cherry Plum to help deal with the irrational thoughts or the lack of self-control. If you think about, like, immediately what came to mind for me was something like, I don't want to speak ill things out, but I have had a car crash. So I think about the car crash. How would I have felt if somebody came up to me, you know, in the midst of everything that was going on and say, you know what, is it all right? Can I give you some Rescue Remedy? This is going to help you relax and calm down, and we're going to help you, and so forth and so on. And so anyway, to get more succinctly to the caller's question, the Rescue Remedy is something that I judge when you have a situation that is an emergency, it can be used as often as every, like, 10, 15 minutes, you know, to really help the person that is maybe having some kind of something going on to calm down and to become present and to be able to breathe. If you can do those things, calm down, be present, and breathe, then they will start to know that everything is going to be okay, and then you could move it out a little bit further. It could go into like every hour, and then it could go after that. Even if the person is unconscious, you could rub a little on their lip because, you know, our skin is, you would get the transdermal effect. Our skin will drink it in. And so
I want to share something really quick about that because I didn't understand it at first. This is a while ago. Do you remember there was an event at the Quaker House?
Yeah.
And I believe someone had, I want to say it was moot soup, but someone had accidentally spilled some of the soup on my hand, on the back of my left hand. And when I say it was hot, it was boiling. And,
wow.
And Moot just, before she said anything, I believe her daughter maybe just came in, you know, got the Rescue Remedy and just rubbed it across my entire hand. And the interesting thing is that I remember is that, you know, usually when you burn, something burns you, it causes this, like, especially, you know, I would say like me, I mean, especially in a visible place, I mean, it's my hand, you know, it's like getting a burn on your face or like something like that. It really could have been bad. So that immediately creates this sense of, ow, this hurts, how bad is this going to be? Is it going to turn into a blister? What do I do next? You know, I'm in a public place. How do I fix this? You know, you try to be calm, but your body is already in shock. to a certain extent, especially if it's something, again,